I watched the man who destroyed my childhood fall to his knees in the dirt, sobbing over a casket that didn't even hold my body. For 24 years, I believed Silas Sterling was incapable of producing a single human tear. I thought his tear ducts had been cauterized by stock options and board meetings. Yet here he was, the unshakable tech titan, the man who missed my high school graduation to merge with a microchip company in Taiwan, clutching a fistful of grass and wailing like a wounded animal. He looked small. He looked broken. And for the first time in my life, I held all the power. They say you should be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. I used to wish he would suffer. I used to wish he would feel even an ounce of the loneliness I felt growing up in his cold, empty mansions. But standing there in the shadow of a massive oak tree, hidden by the hood of my oversized sweatshirt, watching him unravel over a lie, didn't feel like victory. It felt like I was watching a stranger. My name is Jasmine Sterling. And 3 months ago, the world and my father buried me. This is the story of how I died, how I came back, and how I discovered that the monster in my life might have been the only person trying to save me. But before I tell you how I ended up a ghost at my own funeral, let me ask you something. How are you doing right now? Where are you watching this from? Is it raining where you are, or is the sun shining? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one because, honestly, sometimes strangers on the internet listen better than the people we share blood with. If you are new here, or if you've been listening for a while and haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, I need you to do it now. Seriously. Don't be a ghost in this community. Join us. We're building something real here, and I don't want you to miss what happens next. It only takes a second, but it means everything to me. But let me start from the beginning. I wasn't always this cynical. In fact, up until a few months ago, I was just another rich kid trying to buy her father's attention with accomplishments. I was 24, fresh out of an MBA program I hated, working a junior analyst job at a competitor's firm just to see if Silas would notice. He didn't. I was the definition of naive. I thought if I just worked harder, if I was just smarter, if I just looked more like the perfect daughter he wanted, he would finally look at me with the same adoration he gave his prototype servers. I believed in the fairy tale of the hardworking father doing it all for his family. I defended him to my friends when they called him an absentee dad. I told them he was building an empire for us. I was wrong. He wasn't building it for us. He was building it for himself. Or so I thought. The last time I spoke to him, 3 months ago, it wasn't a conversation. It was a transaction. I had called him on his birthday. Not mine, his. I had bought him a vintage watch, something rare, something that cost more than most people's cars. I drove to his office excited, thinking maybe we could grab dinner. His assistant, a woman named Lydia who had been acting as my surrogate mother since I was 3, stopped me at the glass doors. She looked pitying. I hated that look. He's in a video conference with Tokyo, Jasmine, she said softly. He said to leave the gift on the desk. I can wait, I told her. He said he doesn't have time for distractions today. Distractions. That's what I was. A 24-year-old distraction. I left the watch. I walked out of that building, got into my car, and I just drove. I didn't care where I was going. I was blinded by tears and a rage so hot it felt like it was burning my skin. I sped onto the Pacific Coast Highway. It was storming that night. The rain was coming down in sheets, hammering the roof of my car. I wasn't paying attention to the road. I was screaming at the empty passenger seat, screaming all the things I wanted to say to him. Then the headlights blinded me. A truck swerved into my lane. I jerked the wheel. The world spun. Metal screamed. Then, nothing but weightlessness and the dark, churning ocean below. The police report said my car went over the cliff and burst into flames on the rocks below. They found a body in the driver's seat, burned beyond recognition. They identified the victim by the custom Cartier bracelet on the wrist and the dental records of a woman my age. But the body wasn't mine. I had been thrown from the vehicle before it ignited. I washed up miles down the coast, broken, bleeding, and with no memory of who I was. A fisherman found me. He took me to a small, underfunded hospital in a rural town that didn't ask too many questions about insurance. I spent 2 months there as Jane Doe. I didn't know my name. I didn't know I was the heiress to a $1 billion fortune. I just knew I had a recurring nightmare of a man turning his back on me in a glass office. When my memory finally flickered back, it happened all at once. I was sitting in the hospital common room, watching the news. A retrospective on Silas Sterling's tragic year came on the screen. And there was my face. Jasmine Sterling, beloved daughter, taken too soon. I stared at the TV, a half-eaten cup of gelatin in my hand, and felt a cold shock wave go through my body. I remembered the watch. I remembered the rain. I remembered the crash. But then I saw the footage of the funeral. Silas was wearing dark sunglasses. He stood stiff, rigid, his jaw set like stone. He didn't look like a man grieving. He looked like a man handling a PR crisis. He gave a brief statement to the press. We ask for privacy during this difficult time as we honor the memory of my daughter. That was it. No tears. No cracking voice. Just business. I touched the scar on my forehead. If I went back now, what would happen? I'd return to being the distraction. I'd return to the cold house. I'd disrupt his perfect, stoic mourning period. So I didn't call him. I didn't tell the nurses who I really was. I discharged myself the next day with the cash the fisherman had kindly slipped into my pocket. I told myself I was doing it for freedom. I told myself I wanted to start over without the burden of the Sterling name. But that was a lie. I wanted to see him. I wanted to see if he missed me. I wanted to spy on his grief, to prove to myself that I meant nothing to him. I bought a cheap used car. I drove back to the city. I rented a motel room on the outskirts of town. And every morning for the past week, I've driven to the cemetery at 5 a.m., before the paparazzi wake up, before the sun fully rises. I hide in the tree line. I watch. And that brings us to today. I expected him to stop coming. It's been 3 months. Business moves fast. But he's here again. He's wearing a wrinkled shirt. Silas Sterling never wears wrinkled shirts. He hasn't shaved in days. He looks 10 years older than he did on the news. He drops to his knees in the wet grass. He doesn't care about the mud staining his tailored trousers. He places a bouquet of sunflowers on the grave, my favorite. I didn't think he knew they were my favorite. I thought he assumed I liked roses, like the ones he sent his mistresses. He leans his forehead against the cold marble of the headstone. I can't do it, Jazz, he whispers. His voice carries over the quiet cemetery. It's raw. Guttural. I can't sign the deal. Lydia keeps bringing me the papers, but I can't pick up the pen. He's talking about the merger. The one he missed my graduation for. The one he's been working on for 5 years. I thought it was for you, he sobs, his shoulders shaking violently. Everything was for you. I wanted to make sure you never had to be afraid. I wanted to build a fortress so high no one could ever touch you. I freeze. My breath catches in my throat. That's not the narrative I know. That's not the father who checked his emails during my ballet recitals. I was so scared, he chokes out, pounding his fist weakly against the earth. I was so scared I'd lose you like I lost your mother. So I worked. I pushed you away because looking at you hurt too much. You look just like her. He lifts his head, tears streaming down a face I barely recognize. I'd give it all back, baby girl. Every dollar. Every deal. The whole damn company. I'd burn it all to the ground just to tell you I love you one more time. Just to hear you say, Daddy, again. My heart hammers against my ribs. This isn't just grief. This is a confession. This is a man who isn't just sad, he is being eaten alive by guilt. I take a step forward from behind the tree. A twig snaps under my boot. Silas freezes. His head snaps up. He looks wildly around the cemetery, his eyes red and desperate. Jazz, he whispers to the empty air. Is someone there? I shrink back into the shadows, my heart pounding in my ears. I have a choice to make right now. I can step out into the light. I can end his pain. I can give him his daughter back. But if I do, I lose the only freedom I've ever known. And more importantly, if I reveal myself now, I have to explain why I let him suffer for weeks while I watched. And there is something else. Something he said about my mother. I was scared I'd lose you like I lost your mother. My mother died of cancer when I was 3. That's what he always told me. You don't lose someone to cancer in a way that makes you afraid to look at your child. You lose them to a disease. There is a secret here. A secret buried in that grief. And if I step out now, he'll put his armor back on. He'll become Silas Sterling again. I'll never know the truth. He stands up slowly, wiping his face, looking defeated. He turns to leave, walking right past the tree where I'm hiding. I'm close enough to touch him. I smell his cologne mixed with the damp earth. He stops. He pulls his phone out of his pocket. It rings. He answers. I told you, Lydia, I'm not coming in, he snaps. The sadness is gone, replaced by a terrifying coldness. I don't care what the board says. Tell them if they push me, I'll release the files on the unexpected audit. Yeah, all of them. He hangs up. Files? Unexpected audit? I stay frozen until his car disappears through the gates. He isn't just a grieving father. He is a man under siege. And whatever he is hiding, whatever he is threatening to release, it has something to do with why he pushed me away. I look at the grave, my grave. I can't go back to him yet. Not until I know who Silas Sterling really is. I need to know why my mother really died. And I need to know whose body is actually in that casket. Because if that body was identified by my bracelet, that means someone was wearing my jewelry. Someone who was driving my car. I turn away from the grave. I'm not Jasmine Sterling anymore. I'm a ghost. And ghosts are very good at finding secrets. I sat in my beat-up Honda Civic, watching the iron gates of the cemetery close in the rearview mirror. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Seeing my father break down had cracked something open inside me, but it also terrified me. I had spent my entire life building a wall against Silas Sterling. I had cataloged every missed birthday, every cold handshake, every time he chose a board meeting over my piano recitals. I had turned that pain into fuel. I got my MBA to spite him. I got a job at his rival's firm to hurt him. My entire identity was built on the foundation that he didn't love me. Now, that foundation was gone. He did love me. He was just broken. And worse, he was in trouble. I needed to think. I drove back to the motel, a run-down place called the Starlight, in where the sheets scratched your skin and the neon sign buzzed loud enough to rattle the window pane. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the sagging mattress, and pulled out a notebook I'd bought at a drugstore. I needed to map this out. Subject: Silas Sterling. Condition: compromised. Grief-stricken. Threat: the audit. Lydia. Objective: find out why my mother died. Find out who is buried in my grave. Save my father. It looked like a conspiracy theory scribbled by a madwoman. Maybe I was mad. I was supposed to be dead. I want to take a second here. If you're listening to this, and you still have parents who call you, who annoy you, who ask you to fix their Wi-Fi for the 100th time, answer the phone. Seriously. Do it today. Because you never know when you'll be sitting in a cheap motel room realizing you wasted 20 years hating someone who was just trying to protect you. And if you're enjoying this story, if you feel that knot in your stomach tightening, hit that subscribe button. Don't just listen and leave. I'm pouring my soul out here. It's the least you can do to help me get the truth out. Back to the list. I circled the name Lydia. Lydia Thorne. If you had asked me 3 months ago who the most important person in my life was, I wouldn't have said my father. I would have said Lydia. She came into our lives when I was 4, just a year after my mom died. She was my father's executive assistant, but she became my entire world. Silas was the distant planet. Lydia was the gravity that held me together. She was the one who bought my prom dress when Silas was in Dubai. She was the one who taught me how to drive. She was the one who held my hair back when I got sick. She was beautiful, elegant, and always, always there. I trusted her with my life. I trusted her with my secrets. Which is why the phone call I overheard at the cemetery chilled me to the bone. I told you, Lydia, I'm not coming in. My father had sounded afraid of her. Or at least, defensive. Why would the Lion of Silicon Valley be defensive with his assistant? I needed to get into my old life. I needed to see what was happening inside Sterling Corp. And more importantly, inside my own home. But I couldn't just walk in. I was dead. My keycards were deactivated. My fingerprints would probably set off silent alarms. But I knew one place that wouldn't be locked down yet. My personal apartment. I didn't live at the Sterling estate. I had a penthouse downtown that I bought with my trust fund money, another act of rebellion to get away from my father. After I died, the police would have swept it, but now, 3 months later, it would be sitting empty, waiting for probate. I waited until nightfall. I pulled a black beanie low over my forehead and swapped my sweatshirt for a dark jacket. I drove into the city, parking 3 blocks away from my building. It felt surreal walking up to the service entrance. I knew the code. I punched it in. Access denied. My heart sank. Of course. They wiped the codes. I looked around the alley. There was a fire escape, but the ladder was pulled up. Then I saw the janitor, old Mr. Henderson, hauling trash bags out the back door. He had known me since I moved in. He used to sneak me extra recycling bins for my moving boxes. I stepped into the shadows, pulling my scarf up over my nose so only my eyes were visible. I had to time this perfectly. As he propped the door open with a brick to grab another bag, I slipped past him. I moved like a ghost, silent and fast. I was inside. I took the stairs. 20 floors. My legs were burning by the time I reached the penthouse level, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I reached my door. It was taped with police line "Do Not Cross," but the tape had been cut. Someone had been here. I tried the handle. Locked. I pulled a credit card from my pocket, not mine, a prepaid Visa I bought with cash, and shimmied the lock. It was a trick I learned from a boyfriend Silas hated. The lock clicked. I pushed the door open and slipped inside. The smell hit me first. My perfume. It still lingered in the air, mixed with the stale scent of dust. The apartment was exactly as I had left it. My mail was piled on the counter. My half-finished painting was still on the easel. It was like walking into a museum of my own life. I went straight to my home office. I was looking for my external hard drive. I had backed up my phone and my laptop the week before the crash. If I could get that drive, I could see my last texts, my emails, everything. I opened the desk drawer. Empty. I checked the safe behind the painting. Open. Empty. Panic started to rise in my chest. Who had been here? The police would have taken evidence, sure, but they wouldn't have taken my personal backup drives unless they thought my death was a crime. And they had ruled it an accident. Then I heard it. The front door beeped. I froze. I was in the office, down the hall from the entrance. I dove under the heavy oak desk, curling myself into a tight ball. Footsteps. High heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Confident. Purposeful. "I'm telling you, it's not here," a woman's voice said. My blood ran cold. I would know that voice anywhere. Lydia. She wasn't alone. A man's heavy tread followed her. "Keep looking," the man said. His voice was rough, unfamiliar. "The board is getting nervous. If Silas cracks and releases those audit files, we're all exposed. We need to find what the girl knew." What the girl knew. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop my breathing from echoing. What did I know? I didn't know anything. I was just a junior analyst. "She didn't know anything, Victor," Lydia said. Her voice was dismissive. Cold. Jasmine was a spoiled brat. She was too busy trying to get Daddy's attention to look at the ledger. The way she said my name, it wasn't the warm, motherly tone I had heard for 20 years. It was filled with venom. Disgust. She had the access codes, the man, Victor, growled. "You said she used Silas's laptop the week before the crash." "She was uploading vacation photos," Lydia scoffed. I heard the sound of books being ripped off shelves. They were tossing the place. "Look, the plan worked perfectly. Silas is a wreck. He's barely functioning. Another week and he'll sign the power of attorney over to me just to make the pain stop. Then we merge, we sell off the assets, and we disappear." I squeezed my eyes shut. Tears burned, hot and fast. It was all a lie. All of it. The motherly hugs. The advice. The support. She wasn't protecting me from Silas's coldness. She was creating the coldness. She was isolating him, making him dependent on her, while painting him as a monster to me so I wouldn't intervene. She was grooming him for a takeover. And she was grooming me to stay out of the way. "What about the car?" Victor asked. "You're sure the body won't be identified?" "It's been 3 months, Victor. The dental records were a match because I swapped the files in the system before the coroner even saw the body. Money does wonderful things. My heart stopped. She swapped the dental records. And the girl? Victor asked. The one in the car? Vanessa was a thief, Lydia said, her voice devoid of any emotion. She broke in here looking for jewelry. She found Jasmine's spare keys. She took the car. She did us a favor. She died wearing Jasmine's bracelet. It was a poetic end for a little rat. Vanessa. I almost gasped. Vanessa was a girl I met at the gym. We weren't close. She was always asking for money, always borrowing clothes she never returned. I had caught her going through my purse once, but I let it slide because I was lonely. She must have broken in that night. She must have found the keys. She stole my car and drove it off that cliff. And Lydia knew. Lydia knew it wasn't me. Silas is going to the grave every morning, Lydia said, her voice moving closer to the office. It's pathetic. He's crying over a stranger. Let him cry, Victor said. Grief makes men weak. Weak men sign contracts. They were right outside the office door. I saw the tips of Lydia's expensive red-bottom shoes. Check the desk again, she commanded. I shrank back against the wood, praying, begging the universe to make me invisible. The footsteps entered the room. A hand slammed onto the desk above me. I saw Lydia's hand reach down and pull the drawer open, the one I had just checked. Empty, she hissed. Little bitch must have kept the drive on her. If she had it on her, it burned with the car, Victor said. Hopefully, Lydia muttered. Come on. Let's go. I have to get to the mansion and make sure Silas takes his sleeping medication. If he wakes up lucid, he might actually read the merger documents. They turned and walked out. I stayed under that desk for 10 minutes after the door clicked shut. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. Lydia was poisoning him. Sleeping medication. That's why he looked so haggard. That's why he was losing his mind. She was drugging him to keep him compliant while she stole his empire. And Vanessa, poor, desperate Vanessa. She died stealing my car, and Lydia used her corpse to fake my death. I crawled out from under the desk. I felt sick. Physically ill. The betrayal was a physical weight in my gut. The woman I called Auntie Lydia, the woman I loved more than my own father, was a monster. But she made a mistake. She said, little bitch must have kept the drive on her. She was wrong. I didn't keep the drive on me. And it wasn't in the desk. I remembered where it was. 3 days before the accident, I had mailed a package to myself. It was a habit I picked up in college for important projects, a poor man's copyright. If you mail a sealed package to yourself, the postmark proves the date. I had put the backup drive in a padded envelope and mailed it to my P.O. box because I was moving apartments and didn't want to lose it. I never picked it up. The drive was sitting in a post office box 3 blocks from here. And Lydia didn't know about the P.O. box. I stood up. My fear was gone. It was replaced by a cold, sharp anger. It was the same anger I saw in my father's eyes when he closed a deal. Lydia thought Jasmine Sterling was dead. She thought she was fighting a broken man. She had no idea she was fighting a ghost. And she had no idea that I was about to become the one thing Silas Sterling always wanted me to be, ruthless. I wasn't just going to get my life back. I was going to take hers apart, piece by piece. But first, I had to get to that P.O. box. And I had to get to my father before Lydia's medication stopped his heart for good. The game had just changed. And I was done playing by the rules. The post office on 4th and Main was a relic of a dying era, smelling of wet cardboard and cheap adhesive. I kept my head down, my beanie pulled low, scanning the room for cameras. I wasn't Jasmine Sterling, heiress and socialite. I was a ghost in a thrift store jacket, holding a key to a box that hadn't been opened in 3 months. My hand trembled as I slid the small brass key into box 402. It turned with a stiff click. Inside, sitting on top of a stack of junk mail, was the padded yellow envelope. I grabbed it like it was radioactive. I didn't open it there. I shoved it deep into my bag and walked out, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I needed technology. My old phone was at the bottom of the ocean. My new burner phone was a flip phone from a gas station. I drove to a big box electronics store 3 towns over. I paid cash for the cheapest laptop they had and a Wi-Fi hotspot. I couldn't go back to the motel. It felt too exposed. I drove to a public beach parking lot, wedged my car between a massive RV and a dumpster, and cracked the laptop open. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I plugged in the drive. The screen flickered. A password prompt appeared. Enter password. I smiled for the first time in days. It was my drive. I typed in Sunflower 1999. The folder opened. I wasn't looking for my old resumes or my college essays. I went straight to the folder labeled dad_sync. Lydia had been right about one thing. I had used my father's laptop the week before the crash to upload vacation photos from a trip we took to Aspen. But my father, being paranoid about data loss, had his laptop set to auto-sync all new files to any external storage device plugged into it. He probably didn't even know it happened. I scrolled through the files. Most of it was boring corporate jargon. Board meeting minutes. Stock projections. And then a folder created 2 days before I died. Folder name: Prometheus_protocol. I clicked it. It wasn't a document. It was a recording. And a spreadsheet. I clicked the audio file first. The sound of a hushed conversation filled my car. I recognized the voices immediately. It was Lydia. And a man I didn't know, not Victor. Someone with a smooth, politician's voice. The SEC is sniffing around the Cayman accounts, Lydia. If Silas doesn't sign off on the liability transfer soon, the trail leads back to us. He'll sign, Lydia's voice replied. I'm upping the dosage. He's becoming malleable. But we need a scapegoat in case the audit happens before he breaks. Who? The daughter, Lydia said. Jasmine. She has access. We plant the transfers on her login. If the feds come, Silas won't just lose his company. He'll have to watch his daughter go to federal prison. He'll take the fall to save her. He'll confess to everything to protect his little princess. I slammed the laptop shut, gasping for air. The ocean air suddenly felt too thin. They weren't just stealing the company. They were setting me up. That was the plan all along. They were going to frame me for embezzlement to force my father to take the fall. My death had actually ruined their plan A. If I was dead, I couldn't be the scapegoat. That's why they were panicking. That's why Victor was tearing my apartment apart. With me dead, they had no one to pin the crimes on. They needed that hard drive to delete the evidence of the setup, or else the trail would lead right back to Lydia. I opened the laptop again. I needed to copy this. I needed to send it to the police. Suddenly, a red window popped up on the screen. Warning: unauthorized access detected. Geolocation tagged. I froze. The drive. It was encrypted with Sterling Corp security. The moment I accessed the Prometheus folder, it pinged the main server. I looked at the screen. A map appeared. A blinking red dot showed my exact location in the beach parking lot. They knew where I was. My phone rang. The burner phone. I stared at it. No one had this number. I flipped it open. Hello. You have exactly 3 minutes before Victor's team gets there, a male voice rasped. It was distorted, digital. Leave the car. Take the drive. Run. Who is this? Run, Jasmine. The line went dead. I didn't think. I grabbed the laptop and the drive. I shoved the door open. As I sprinted toward the boardwalk, a black SUV screeched into the parking lot, blocking my Honda. 2 men jumped out. One of them was Victor. I saw the glint of a gun tucked into his waistband. I didn't look back. I ran. I bolted through the crowd of tourists, weaving between ice cream stands and souvenir shops. I ducked into a surf shop, out the back door, and into an alleyway. I didn't stop running for 10 blocks. I collapsed behind a dumpster in a narrow alley, clutching the laptop bag to my chest. My lungs were burning. They knew I was alive. Or at least, they knew someone had the drive. And someone else knew too. The man on the phone. I looked at the burner phone. A text message popped up. 1402 Industrial Way. Warehouse 4. Come alone if you want to save Silas. This is the part of the story where a rational person goes to the cops. But the cops had ruled my death an accident. The cops worked for the city, and Sterling Corp owned half the city. If I went to the police, Lydia would have me in a psych ward or a morgue before I could file a report. I had to trust the voice. I took 3 different buses to get to the industrial district. It was getting dark. The warehouses loomed like skeletons against the purple sky. Warehouse 4 was a rusted corrugated metal box at the end of a dead-end street. The door was unlocked. I walked in. It was dark, smelling of oil and old servers. In the center of the room, illuminated by the blue glow of a dozen computer monitors, sat a man in a wheelchair. He spun around. He was young, maybe 28. Messy dark hair, pale skin, and eyes that looked like they hadn't slept in a week. He wore a faded hoodie that said NASA on it. I knew him. Leo? I whispered. Leo Vance. He was the head of cybersecurity for Sterling Corporation. Or he was, until he was fired 6 months ago for gross negligence. You look terrible for a dead girl, Leo said, his voice dry. He didn't smile. You warned me, I said, stepping closer. How did you know? I built the security protocols for your father's laptop, Leo said, tapping his keyboard. When you triggered the alarm, I got a backdoor notification. I've been monitoring Lydia's network since the day she fired me. Why did she fire you? I asked. Because I found the Cayman accounts, Leo said. He wheeled himself closer to me. I went to your father. I tried to tell him Lydia was bleeding the company dry. He didn't believe me. He said Lydia was family. He fired me on the spot. I flinched. That sounded like Silas. Loyal to a fault to the people who were useful to him. He's sick, Leo, I said. She's drugging him. I know, Leo said. I've been tracking his prescription refills. She's got a doctor on payroll giving him enough sedatives to knock out a horse. She's keeping him in a twilight state so he'll sign the merger. We have to stop her, I said, holding up the drive. I have proof. The recording. The spreadsheet. Leo looked at the drive, then up at me. His expression was grim. It's not that simple, Jasmine. Why not? We take this to the FBI. If we give this to the FBI, your father goes to prison for 20 years, Leo said calmly. What? No, he's the victim. Look at the files again, Leo said. The Cayman accounts? They're in his name. The wire transfers? Authorized by his biometric signature. Lydia didn't just steal money, she used Silas's identity to do it. On paper, Silas Sterling is the biggest corporate thief in history. Lydia is just the innocent assistant who didn't know. I felt the blood drain from my face. So if we expose her, we expose him, Leo finished. He goes down. She walks away with a plea deal for testifying against him. That's her endgame. She destroys him either way. I sank onto a crate. So what do? We can't let her win. We have to steal it back, Leo said. I looked at him. What? We have to hack the main server at Sterling Tower, Leo said, his eyes gleaming with a dangerous intensity. We need to find the original altered logs, the digital footprint that proves Lydia changed the files. That evidence isn't on your drive. It's on the mainframe. In the penthouse server room. The penthouse. I realized what he was saying. My father's home office. Exactly, Leo said. We need to break into the most secure building in the city, access a server that is air-gapped from the internet, and steal the evidence while Lydia and her goons are watching. That's impossible, I said. It's impossible for me, Leo said, gesturing to his wheelchair. I can't get in there. But you're dead. No one is looking for a dead girl. You know the house. You know the codes, or at least, the old ones. He rolled closer. This is the point of no return, Jasmine. If you walk away now, you can disappear. Go to Europe. Live a quiet life. But if we do this, if we declare war on Lydia Thorne, we are committing a felony. If we get caught, we don't go to jail. We disappear. For real this time. I looked at the monitors. I saw a live feed of the Sterling estate gate. I saw my father's car pulling in. I thought about him kneeling in the dirt. I thought about him crying. I thought about him saying he'd give it all back just to tell me he loved me. He had spent 20 years building a fortune he didn't care about, just to protect me. Now it was my turn to protect him. I looked at Leo. I don't want to go to Europe, I said, my voice steady. I want to burn her world down. Leo finally smiled. It was a shark smile. Good, he said. Then pull up a chair, princess. School is in session. Leo's warehouse became my command center. For the next week, I lived on coffee, stale energy bars, and the burning need for vengeance. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was finally getting my father's attention by becoming a master criminal, trained by his disgruntled former head of security. Leo was brilliant, but bitter. His disability, a spinal injury sustained in a climbing accident, hadn't slowed his mind, but it had certainly sharpened his edge. He saw Lydia as the perfect embodiment of corporate rot, and he saw me as the necessary weapon. You have to know every inch of that house, Leo drilled me, pointing at a blurry blueprint on the screen. The ventilation shafts, the dead zones for the motion sensors, the schedule of the rotating security detail. You grew up there. You have the access memory. I nodded. I knew the house better than my father did. I knew the squeaky step on the back stairs. I knew the vent in the library that blew cold air. The pressure built on two fronts, the infiltration and the external threat. Leo was monitoring the corporate network, which Lydia thought she controlled. He showed me the escalating tension in the Sterling Corp Slack channels. She's running out of time, Leo explained, highlighting a memo from the company's CFO, a man named Denton, demanding immediate proof of the company's financial stability. Denton is loyal to Silas. He doesn't trust Lydia. She has 3 days to get Silas to sign the power of attorney before Denton calls for an emergency board vote to sideline her. 3 days. I had to move. Leo calculated the precise window. 3 a.m. tomorrow. That was the crossover point for the security shifts, the only 10-minute period when the exterior sensors were briefly offline for scheduled recalibration. The greatest deception of all is the life you lead, Leo muttered one night, watching a news clip of Silas Sterling, pale and haggard, being supported by Lydia as he left a charity gala. Lydia has been running the entire company from the shadows for years, making Silas look like the genius while she set the stage for his downfall. That's the real betrayal, Jasmine. Not just the theft, but the manipulation of your entire reality. She made him look absent to me, so I wouldn't trust him. She made him look cold, so I would pull away. I realized, the pieces finally clicking into place. It was all intentional. Yes. She knew if you and Silas were close, you'd see the cracks. You'd see the exhaustion. You'd talk to him. She kept him isolated from the one person he actually cared about, you, to maintain control. The deception layered deeper. I was researching the Prometheus Protocol spreadsheet I copied. It detailed the complex shell corporations Lydia had created. One name kept popping up as the primary recipient of the laundered funds, Victor Gantry. Victor is the muscle, the enforcer, and the CFO of their entire shadow operation, Leo explained. He's an ex-Blackwater operative who learned finance in prison. Perfect for running illegal money. But there was a new, unsettling discovery. Among the financial documents, I found a series of recurring payments, stretching back 21 years, to a small medical facility in Switzerland called the Helios Clinic. What is this, Leo? I asked, pointing to the transfer logs. Looks like a private clinic. Expensive. And familiar, Leo squinted at the address. Wait a minute. I saw this address on a highly restricted file when I was working for Silas. It was a file he kept locked down, even from Lydia. It was labeled, yes, contingency. Yes, Alara Sterling. My mother. My mother died of cancer, I said, feeling a sudden chill. Did she? Leo asked, raising an eyebrow. Your father is still paying a fortune every month to a clinic known for cutting-edge, experimental long-term care for degenerative diseases. 21 years of payments, all wired personally by Silas, not through the company. That doesn't sound like a death certificate to me, Jasmine. My head swam. Everything I thought I knew about my childhood was dissolving into a fog of lies. My mother didn't die? She was alive? And my father had been keeping it a secret for 2 decades? That explains the absence. He wasn't missing recitals for a stock deal. He was flying to Switzerland to see my mother. He wasn't cold. He was emotionally frozen by the burden of a devastating secret he was carrying alone. The guilt hit me, crushing and immediate. All my life, I had called him a monster. He was just a terrified, isolated husband trying to keep his wife alive and his daughter safe from the truth. This realization didn't slow me down. It accelerated my determination. I wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting for my family. The night of the infiltration, I drove Leo's beat-up maintenance van to a service entrance near the Sterling estate. The mansion was a 20,000-square-foot fortress, surrounded by stone walls and high-tech security. "Remember the protocol," Leo whispered into the radio I wore. He was back at the warehouse, my eyes and ears. "You have 10 minutes from the moment the sensor recalibration starts. Go for the library window. It's the only one I can guarantee the heat sensor is misaligned on." I climbed the wall, the adrenaline making my movements silent and efficient. I found the library window, pried it open with a small crowbar Leo provided, and slipped inside. The air in the house was thick, cold, and silent. It was 3:05 a.m. I moved through the shadows of the immense house, the marble floors echoing with the memory of a life I never lived. I passed the grand staircase, the place where I always waited for my father to come home. I reached the master suite on the second floor. The door was slightly ajar. I peered in. The room was vast and dark. I saw my father, Silas, lying immobile in the center of the massive bed. He looked like a corpse. His breathing was shallow. And standing over him was Lydia. She was wearing a silk dressing gown. She wasn't holding a business document. She was holding a syringe. "Just a little something extra, my love," she cooed, her voice saccharine. "To ensure you sleep soundly through the signing tomorrow. You've fought me long enough." She plunged the needle into the 4-line running into his arm. I almost screamed. She wasn't just drugging him, she was actively trying to kill him. She couldn't wait 3 days for the documents. The board meeting had forced her hand. I had 30 minutes, maybe less, before that dose took effect permanently. I had to get to the server room, my father's private study, 3 floors down. I backed away silently, my heart pounding. I was not just hacking a computer now, I was racing against a clock of life and death. I reached the study. The door was steel-plated and locked with a keypad. I knew the code. It was the day my mother and father got married, a date Silas celebrated every year. $0512887. I typed it in. The light flashed red. "Access denied." "Wrong code," Leo hissed in my ear. "It's his anniversary. He wouldn't change it." "He did," Leo countered. "Lydia has been monitoring all his old habits. She forced a change last week." I felt desperation rising. I pounded my fist against the steel. "Think, Jasmine, think. What would he change it to now? What's the only date he cares about more than your mother's wedding day?" Leo urged. I looked at the steel door. What was his single obsession? His single focus? It wasn't his company. It wasn't his wife. It was the day his obsession began. The day he started lying to me. The day my mother died. The day his secret burden began. I took a deep breath. $0822299. The light flashed green. The lock clicked. I pushed the heavy door open and slipped inside. I was in. I ran to the wall behind his desk where a massive Renaissance painting hung. I pulled the painting aside. Behind it was a vault-like server door. I typed the new code again. The server room light flickered on. The cold, dry air hit me instantly. This was it. The brain of Sterling Corp. I knelt down, connecting the hard drive to the server access port. "I'm in, Leo. Uploading the override command now. Be quick, Jazz. The sensor recalibration is over. The pressure is on." The upload bar crawled across the screen. 1%. 5%. Suddenly, the lights in the room flickered off. Total darkness. "Leo? What happened?" "Power spike. Lydia knows you're in. She just dumped the grid to that wing of the house." A heavy thud sounded from outside the study door. "Jasmine, get out. Now. Victor Gantry is at the door." Leo screamed in my headset. "He's going to use the manual override code." I looked at the upload bar. 12%. Not enough. I needed more time. I was trapped in the darkness with the one thing Lydia wanted destroyed. And Victor Gantry was about to break down the door. I held my breath until my lungs burned. The heavy steel door to the server room shuddered as Victor threw his weight against it. Thud. Thud. Open the door, or I blow the hinges. Victor's voice was muffled, but terrifyingly close. I looked at the screen. The upload bar was frozen at 12%. The power to the room was cut, running only on the emergency backup battery, which was failing fast. The connection to Leo was gone. The upload was dead. I couldn't get the digital evidence. The plan had failed. But my eyes landed on something else. On the desk, illuminated by the dying blue light of the monitor, was a physical file. It was old, leather-bound, and stamped with a single word in gold foil, Alara. It was the only thing on my father's desk. I grabbed it. I didn't have time to think. I shoved the thick binder into my jacket. The door hinges groaned. A spark flew as a drill bit pierced the metal. He was drilling the lock. I scanned the room. There was no other exit. No vent large enough for a person. I was trapped in a concrete box with a mercenary who thought I was dead and would be very happy to make that permanent. Then I remembered the painting. The one that covered the server entrance. The server room was actually a converted panic room. My father had built it after the kidnapping threats started in the late 90s. Panic rooms don't just have one way in, they have an escape hatch. I dropped to my knees and felt along the floor under the server racks. My fingers brushed a cold metal ring recessed into the floor tiles. Leo was right, I whispered. I pulled. It was heavy, hydraulic. It hissed as it opened, revealing a dark, narrow chute with a ladder disappearing into the blackness. The main door burst open with a deafening crash. I didn't look back. I dropped into the hole and pulled the hatch shut above me just as a flashlight beam swept the room. I slid down the ladder, my boots scraping against the metal. It was a tight squeeze. I landed in the sub-basement, a damp, dusty crawl space that smelled of earth and old copper pipes. I crawled. I crawled until my knees bled, following the faint draft of air that Leo had said indicated an exit. I emerged through a rusted grate in the garden shed, half a mile from the main house. I ran to the van. I threw myself into the driver's seat, my hands shaking so hard I could barely turn the key. Leo. I screamed into the headset. Leo, come in. I made it out. Static. Leo. Nothing. I peeled out of the service road, driving without headlights until I hit the main highway. I didn't go back to the warehouse. If they had found the intrusion, they would trace the signal back to Leo. I drove to the only place I knew was safe, a 24-hour truck stop diner 40 miles north. I sat in a booth in the back, the red vinyl cracked and peeling. I ordered a black coffee. My hands were covered in grease and dust. I looked like a homeless person. I pulled the leather binder out of my jacket. This was it. The reason for everything. I opened the first page. It wasn't a bank statement. It wasn't a merger document. It was a medical chart. Patient. Alara Sterling. Status. Comatose/cryogenic suspension. Location. Helios Clinic, Geneva, Switzerland. Date of admission. August 22nd, 1999. The date of her death. She was alive. My mother was alive. I flipped the page. There were photos. Photos of my mother, looking exactly as she did when I was 3, sleeping peacefully in a glass pod filled with blue liquid. She hadn't aged. She looked like Snow White. But it was the next document that stopped my heart. Diagnosis: early onset neurodegenerative failure, generic strain B. Prognosis: fatal without intervention. Hereditary probability: 100%. I read that line 3 times. Hereditary probability: 100%. I flipped to the next section. It was titled Subject: Jasmine. My blood ran cold. There were charts tracking my growth. Blood test results from my annual physicals. Physicals I thought were routine, but were actually monitoring me for the same disease that killed froze my mother. And then a letter. Handwritten by my father. Dated 3 years ago. To my dearest Jasmine. If you are reading this, I have failed. I promised your mother I would find a cure before the symptoms started in you. The doctors say the stress triggers the gene. The more stress you are under, the faster the disease takes hold. That is why I had to do it. I had to make you hate me. I couldn't let you be part of this world. I couldn't let you feel the pressure of the company. I couldn't let you worry about me. I needed you to be distant. I needed you to live a life of shallow resentments rather than deep, crushing grief. Every time I missed a birthday, I was in the lab. Every time I ignored your calls, I was negotiating with specialists. I broke your heart to save your life. The cure is close. But it costs everything. I have liquidated 60% of my personal assets to fund the Helios research. Lydia suspects, but she thinks I'm gambling. She doesn't know about the clinic. She doesn't know about the gene. I love you more than life itself. Please forgive me for being the villain in your story. It was the only way to be the hero in your future. I dropped the letter. It fluttered onto the greasy table. Tears, hot and blinding, streamed down my face. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a cold, unfeeling tycoon. He was a father who had systematically destroyed his own happiness to keep his daughter's stress levels low. He took the blame. He took the hate. He let me despise him because he thought hate was safer than grief. And the business trips? He was visiting my mother. He was funding the research to save us both. I sobbed, putting my head in my hands. The waitress walked by, saw me shaking, and kept walking. I had been so wrong. I had been a spoiled, angry child throwing stones at a man who was holding up the sky for me. My phone buzzed. I wiped my eyes and looked at the screen. It was a text from Leo. But it wasn't from Leo. Attached image. It was a photo of Leo. He was tied to his wheelchair, his face bruised and bloody. A piece of duct tape was over his mouth. Standing behind him, smiling coldly, was Victor. The text underneath read, "We found the rat. And thanks to your little hack, we traced the signal right back to his nest. We know you're alive, Jasmine. And we have your friend. Bring the binder to the Sterling estate in 1 hour. Or we kill the cripple. And then we call the Swiss clinic and pull the plug on mommy." They knew. Lydia knew about Alara. She must have found the records in the server room after I escaped. The midpoint devastation isn't just a plot twist. It's the moment your soul gets ripped out. I sat there in that diner, shivering. I had lost everything. Leo was captured because of me. My father was being poisoned because of me. My mother's life support was about to be cut because of me. I had tried to be a hero, and I had just handed Lydia the keys to destroy my entire family. Lydia wasn't just stealing money anymore. She was holding my mother's life hostage. I stood up. I left a $20 bill on the table for a coffee I didn't drink. I wasn't crying anymore. The tears had stopped. They were replaced by something else. A cold, hard resolve. My father had tried to protect me from stress to save my life. He tried to keep me soft. But he failed. The stress was here. The gene was probably ticking inside me right now like a time bomb. I didn't care. If I was going to die, I was going to die fighting. I walked out to the van. I reached under the seat and pulled out the only weapon Leo had given me, a heavy, illegal taser and a flash drive containing a virus so potent it would fry any server it touched. I looked at the text message one more time. 1 hour. I texted back. I'm coming home. I wasn't going there to negotiate. I was going there to finish what my father started. I drove through the gates of the Sterling estate with the taste of copper in my mouth. My tongue was bitten raw. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel like a hero in a movie. I felt like a child walking into a slaughterhouse. The house loomed ahead, lit up like a cruise ship. Every window was blazing. It was a display of power. Lydia wanted me to see that she was awake, that she was waiting, and that she owned everything I used to call home. I parked the van right at the front steps. I grabbed the leather binder. I checked the taser in my pocket one last time. It was a heavy, reassuring weight, but I knew deep down it wouldn't be enough. You don't take down a woman like Lydia Thorne with a stun gun. You take her down with leverage. And I had just handed over my leverage in exchange for a chance to beg. I walked up the steps. The massive oak doors swung open before I even touched the handle. Victor Gantry stood there. He wasn't wearing his tactical gear anymore. He was in a suit. He looked like the CFO he was pretending to be. He smiled, and it was the ugliest thing I had ever seen. "Welcome home, princess," he said. "Wipe your feet." I walked past him into the grand foyer. Lydia was standing at the bottom of the staircase. She looked impeccable. She wore a cream-colored cashmere sweater and slacks. She held a crystal tumbler of scotch. She looked like the lady of the manor. And at her feet, dumped on the marble floor like a bag of trash, was Leo. He was conscious, but barely. His face was a swollen mask of purple and red. His wheelchair was overturned a few feet away, one of the wheels spinning lazily. "Leo," I choked out. I started to run toward him. "Aha," Lydia said, raising a finger. "Stay right there, Jasmine. Or Victor breaks his other hand." I froze. I looked at Leo. He opened one eye. It was bloodshot. "Trap," he wheezed. Blood bubbled past his lips. "Run." "She can't run," Lydia said, taking a sip of her drink. "She's a good daughter. She's here to save her mommy and daddy. Aren't you, sweetie?" She held out her hand. "Give me the binder." I clutched the leather file to my chest. "Let him go first. Put him in the van. Let him drive away. Then you get the file." Lydia laughed. It was a light, tinkling sound that echoed off the high ceilings. "You are in no position to negotiate, Jasmine. You are a dead woman walking. Legally, you don't exist. If I shoot you right now, I'm just shooting an intruder. A burglar. No one would even blink." She took a step closer. "But I don't want to shoot you." "That's messy. I want what's in that binder. And I want you to sign something for me. Do that, and Leo lives. Do that, and I don't make the call to Switzerland." She pulled a phone from her pocket. The screen was lit up. It showed a contact name, Dr. Vogel, Helios Clinic. "One button," she whispered. "One button and the life support turns off. Your mother wakes up for 30 seconds of agony, and then she suffocates. Is that what you want?" I looked at the phone. I looked at Leo. I looked at the binder. I had no choice. I walked forward. My legs felt like lead. I handed her the binder. Lydia snatched it. She didn't even open it. She just handed it to Victor. "Burn it," she commanded. Victor took the binder and walked toward the massive fireplace in the living room. "Wait," I screamed. "You said—" "I said I wouldn't call the clinic if you signed," Lydia interrupted. She pulled a document from the table behind her. She dropped it on the floor in front of me. "Sign it." I looked down. It wasn't a confession. It was a retroactive transfer of ownership. It stated that before my death, I had transferred all my trust fund shares, my 20% of the company, to Lydia Thorne. "You already have the company," I said, my voice shaking. "Why do you need this?" "Because your father is stubborn," Lydia said, her face twisting into a skull. "Even drugged out of his mind, he won't sign the final release. He keeps mumbling your name. He thinks he's protecting your inheritance. But if you sign this, if you give me your shares voluntarily, I have the controlling interest. I don't need his signature anymore. I can merge the company, liquidate the assets, and walk away with $2 billion. And my father? He goes into a nice, quiet facility where he can drool in peace," Lydia said. "And your mother stays on ice. As long as you disappear." "Disappear? You're dead, Jasmine. Stay dead. Go to Mexico. Go to Thailand. I don't care. Just get out of my life." She kicked the pen toward me. "Sign. Or Leo dies right now and your mother follows him in 5 minutes." I looked at Leo. He was shaking his head slightly. "Don't do it." But I couldn't let them die. I couldn't be the reason everyone suffered. I knelt on the floor. I picked up the pen. My hand was trembling so hard I could barely hold it. I signed. "Jasmine Sterling." I stood up. "Done. Now let them go." Lydia picked up the document. She checked the signature. She smiled. A true, genuine smile of victory. "Thank you, Jasmine," she said. She folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket. "Victor, get the car." "For Leo?" I asked. Lydia looked at me with mock confusion. "Oh, honey. You didn't think I was actually going to let a hacker and a loose end walk out of here, did you?" My stomach dropped. "You promised." "I lied," Lydia said flatly. "Leo knows too much. And you know everything." She nodded to Victor. Victor moved with a speed that defied his size. Before I could reach for the taser, he backhanded me. The world exploded in white light. I hit the floor hard. My vision swam. "Take the cripple to the disposal site," Lydia ordered calmly. "And take her to the wine cellar. I need to figure out the best way to stage a second suicide." Maybe a grief-stricken daughter returned from the dead only to take her life in the family home. It's poetic. No, I screamed. I tried to scramble up. Victor kicked me in the ribs. I heard a crack. The air left my lungs. I watched through a haze of pain as Victor dragged Leo out the front door. Leo wasn't moving. Leo. I wheezed. Lydia grabbed me by the hair. She dragged me across the foyer, my boots squeaking on the marble. You should have stayed dead, Jasmine, she hissed into my ear. You really should have. She opened the heavy wooden door to the basement wine cellar. She threw me down the stairs. I tumbled into the dark. I hit the concrete floor at the bottom. The door slammed shut above me. I heard the heavy deadbolt slide home. Darkness. Absolute, suffocating darkness. I lay there on the cold stone floor, gasping for air. My ribs were on fire. My head was throbbing. I had lost. I had given them everything. I gave them the binder. I gave them the company. I gave them my signature. And in return, Leo was being taken to be killed, and I was locked in a hole waiting to be murdered. I crawled into the corner of the cellar. It smelled of cork and dust. I pulled my knees to my chest. I wanted to scream, but I didn't have the breath. I wanted to cry, but I didn't have the tears. I was completely alone. And then it started. It wasn't the pain in my ribs. It was something else. A tremor. It started in my right hand. A violent, uncontrollable shaking. I tried to make a fist to stop it, but my fingers wouldn't obey. Then, the headache shifted. It wasn't a throb anymore. It was a sharp, blinding spike behind my eyes. My vision blurred. Even in the darkness, I saw flashes of light that weren't there. I remembered the file. Diagnosis: early onset neurodegenerative failure. Trigger: extreme stress. My father was right. He wasn't just being paranoid. The gene was real. And by coming back, by fighting, by terrifying myself beyond measure, I had triggered it. I was dying. My body was failing. I slumped against the wine rack. I couldn't feel my legs. This was rock bottom. I wasn't just defeated, I was broken. Physically, mentally, emotionally. I thought about the audience listening to this. You guys. I told you this was a story about triumph. I lied. Right now, sitting in the dark, feeling my own nervous system short-circuit, I don't see a way out. Do you know what it feels like to realize your entire life was a waste? I spent 20 years hating a man who was saving me. And the moment I tried to save him back, I destroyed us both. I closed my eyes. I pictured my mother in her glass pod. I pictured my father in his drugged sleep. I'm sorry, I whispered into the dark. I'm so sorry. The silence of the cellar was heavy. It pressed against my ears. I waited for Victor to come back with a gun. I waited for the end. But in the silence, I heard something. It was faint. Rhythmic. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. It was coming from the ventilation grate near the ceiling. I froze. Was it a rat? Tap. Tap tap. Tap. No. That was a pattern. I dragged myself up. My legs were numb, but I forced them to work. I stood on a crate of vintage Merlot. I put my ear to the vent. Tap. Tap tap. Tap. Morse code, I whispered. My father taught me Morse code when I was 7. He said it was a secret language for us. We used to tap messages on the dinner table when Lydia was talking too much. S. O. S. My heart skipped a beat. J. A. Z. Jazz. Only one person called me Jazz. Daddy? I whispered into the vent. No. He was drugged. He was a vegetable. Lydia said so. The tapping came again. N. O. T. D. R. U. G. G. E. D. Not drugged. I almost fell off the crate. P. L. A. Y. I. N. G. Playing. W. A. I. T. I. N. G. Waiting. My breath hitched. He wasn't sedated. He was faking it. He had been faking it. F. O. R. Y. O. U. For you. I pressed my face against the cold metal grate. Tears, real tears, flooded my eyes. He knew. He knew I was alive. He knew I was here. And he had been playing the long game, waiting for the moment when Lydia brought me to him. He wasn't the damsel in distress. He was the Trojan horse. But I was locked in a cellar. And he was locked in a bedroom 3 floors up. And Victor was out there killing Leo. I tapped back, my fingernail scraping against the metal. H. E. L. P. The response was immediate. L. O. O. K. B. E. H. I. N. D. 1982. Look behind 1982. I looked at the wine racks. The cellar was organized by vintage. I scrambled down from the crate. I ignored the shaking in my hands. I scanned the dusty labels. 1990, 1988, 1985, 1982, a row of dusty Chateau Margaux. I pulled the bottles out, one by one, smashing them on the floor in my haste. Red wine pooled around my boots like blood. Behind the last bottle, there wasn't Stonewall. There was a small, keypad-operated safe embedded in the concrete. It was a contingency. My father was a man of contingencies. I stared at the keypad. The code. What was the code? He had changed the server room code to the day my mother died. But this safe, this was older. 1982. I thought about the tapping. Playing. Waiting. My father wasn't a sentimental man about dates, except for my mother. But he was a man of numbers. I looked at the wine cork in my hand. It had a serial number burned into it. No, that was too complex. Think, Jasmine. He guided you here. He knew you would find it. I tapped the vent again. C. O. D. E. The response came back slow. Y. O. U. R. N. A. M. E. My name. I looked at the keypad. It was alphanumeric. J.S. my knee. I typed it in. $5276463. The little light blinked green. The safe popped open. Inside, there was no money. No documents. There was a single, small glass vial filled with a clear liquid. And a syringe. And a note, wrapped around a heavy, black pistol. The note read, "The cure. 1 dose. Take it. It stops the tremor immediately. It clears the mind. It saves you. The gun is for them. I'm sorry I couldn't give this to you sooner. I had to be sure it worked. I tested it on myself. That's why I've been sick. The side effect is temporary paralysis. It wears off. I am waking up, Jazz. Are you ready to fight?" I stared at the vial. The cure. He hadn't just been funding research, he had found it. And he had tested it on himself, enduring the paralysis, letting Lydia think she was drugging him, just to perfect it for me. The tremor in my hand was violent now. I could barely hold the vial. I had a choice. I could stay here, broken and dying. Or I could take the shot. I jammed the needle into the vial. I drew up the clear liquid. I didn't hesitate. I plunged it into my thigh. The effect was instantaneous. It was like ice water rushing through my veins. The shaking stopped. The headache vanished. My vision sharpened to a razor's edge. I felt power. Real, physical power. I picked up the gun. It was a .45 caliber. Heavy. Lethal. I tapped on the vent one last time. R. E. A. D. Y. From 3 floors up, a rhythmic pounding started. Not tapping. Pounding. It sounded like a giant waking up. My father was breaking out of his room. I looked at the cellar door. Lydia thought she had buried me. She thought she had won. She forgot one thing. You don't bury a sterling. You just plant them. And I was about to bloom. The gun felt heavy in my hand, but for the first time in months, my hand wasn't shaking. The serum my father had developed was coursing through me like high-octane fuel. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. The girl who cried over missed birthdays was gone. I stood at the bottom of the cellar stairs. The heavy oak door was locked from the outside. I didn't look for a key. I didn't try to pick the lock. I raised the .45, aimed at the deadbolt, and pulled the trigger. Bang. The sound was deafening in the small space. Wood splintered. Metal shrieked. The door swung open a few inches. I kicked it wide. I stepped out into the hallway. The house was chaos. The alarm system was blaring, a high-pitched wail that vibrated in my teeth. I moved toward the stairs. I expected to see Victor coming for me. I expected a firefight. But when I reached the foyer, I stopped. Victor wasn't there. Lydia wasn't there. But 3 of the private security guards, hired muscle loyal to Lydia, were lying on the marble floor. They weren't moving. And standing in the center of the carnage, straightening his cufflinks, was Silas Sterling. He didn't look like the broken man at the grave. He didn't look like the drugged invalid in the bed. He looked like a titan. He was breathing hard, a bruise forming on his jaw, but his eyes were terrifying. They were cold, calculated, and absolutely lethal. He looked up and saw me. He didn't smile. He didn't run to hug me. He just looked at the gun in my hand, then up to my eyes. "You took the shot," he said. His voice was steady. "I took the shot," I replied. "How do you feel?" "Like I could punch through a wall." "Good," Silas said. "You're going to need to." He walked over to one of the unconscious guards and bent down, ripping a tactical radio off the man's vest. "Lydia and Victor took the east exit," he said, checking the magazine of a pistol he must have taken from one of the guards. "They have a 3-minute head start. They think I'm still drooling on my pillow, and they think you're locked in the cellar." "They have Leo," I said, stepping closer. "We have to go." Silas stopped. He looked at me, and for a second, the mask slipped. I saw the father underneath the soldier. "Jazz," he said softly. "We have a problem." "What problem?" "Lydia triggered the transfer protocols right before she ran. I heard her on the phone. She's moving the assets. All of them. The liquid cash, the patent rights, the deeds. Everything." He turned to the hallway leading to his study, to the server room I had broken into earlier. "If I don't get to the mainframe in the next 10 minutes and initiate a hard lockdown, the money disappears. It bounces through 1,000 shell accounts in the Caymans. We lose everything. Sterling Corporation. The estate. The funding for the clinic. Your mother's life support." He looked at me with an intensity that burned. "I need to go to the server room. I need to stop the transfer." "Okay," I said. "So go." "I'll go get Leo." "You can't," Silas said. "Victor is with them. Victor is ex-Special Forces. He will kill you before you even get out of the car." "I can handle Victor." "You can't." "Not yet." I stared at him. I understood the math he was doing. It was the same math he had done his whole life. Cold. Logical. "So what are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying we have to choose," Silas said. "If I go after Leo, we lose the company and your mother's funding. If I save the company, Lydia kills Leo." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Leo is a soldier, Jasmine. He knew the risks. He went into this knowing the cost." "No," I said. Silas blinked. "Excuse me?" "No," I repeated. I stepped into his personal space. I was shorter than him, but in that moment, I felt 10 feet tall. "This is why I hated you, Dad. This right here. The math. The calculation. You think people are assets. You think losses are acceptable. I am trying to save your mother," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Without that money, the clinic shuts down in a week. We will find the money." I shouted back. "We are Sterlings. We build empires. We can build another one. But we cannot build another Leo." I pointed the gun at the front door. "Leo is in that van because of me. He is dying because he believed in me. If we let him die to save a bank account, then we are exactly who Lydia says we are. We are monsters." I looked him dead in the eye. "I am not a monster. And neither are you. You spent 20 years pretending to be one to save me. Don't become one for real just to save a few $1 billion. Silas stared at me. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. The alarm was still blaring, but it felt like background noise. He looked at the server room door. Then he looked at the front door. This was the impossible choice. The legacy or the loyalty. The past or the future. He looked back at me. A strange expression crossed his face. It wasn't anger. It was pride. He racked the slide of his gun. "You're stubborn," he said. "Just like your mother." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes," he said. "Forget the money. Let's go get your hacker." We ran out the front door. My heart was soaring. For the first time in my life, I wasn't following my father. We were running side by side. We reached the driveway. The security SUV was gone. Lydia and Victor had taken it. But the maintenance van, Leo's van, was still there. "Get in," Silas barked. "I'll drive." "You've been paralyzed for 3 years," I said, jumping into the passenger seat. "Can you drive?" Silas smiled. It was a terrifying, shark-like grin. "Jazz, I drove Formula One cars before you were born. Buckle up." He hot-wired the van in under 10 seconds. The engine roared to life. He slammed it into gear, and we peeled out of the driveway, tires screaming against the asphalt. "Leo has a tracker," I said, pulling out the burner phone. He implanted a subdermal chip in his arm. He showed me the frequency. I punched up the app Leo had installed on the phone. A blinking blue dot appeared on the map. "They're on the I-5 heading north," I said. "Toward the quarry." "The quarry," Silas muttered, swerving through traffic. "Of course. Victor likes deep water." We were doing 90 in a 40 zone. The van rattled and shook. "Hey," I said, looking at the camera, or where a camera would be if this were a movie. "I need to talk to you guys for a second. If you are listening to this and your heart is racing and you are rooting for us to save Leo, you need to subscribe. Right now. I am literally in a high-speed chase with my billionaire father to save my friend from a mercenary. I am risking everything. The least you can do is hit that red button. Don't be a spectator in the war against evil. Join the army. Subscribe. Like the video. Do it for Leo." "They're slowing down," I said, watching the dot. "They're turning off the main road." "I know the spot," Silas said. "It's an old industrial access road. Dead end. Overlooks the reservoir." He looked over at me. "Listen to me, Jasmine. When we get there, it's going to get ugly. Victor won't surrender. Lydia won't surrender. You have that gun. Are you ready to use it? I mean, really use it." I thought about Leo's face when he told me to run. I thought about the years Lydia stole from me. I thought about my mother in a glass box. I gripped the handle of the .45 until my knuckles turned white. "I'm not just ready," I said. "I'm looking forward to it." Silas nodded. "That's my girl." We drifted around a sharp corner, gravel spraying everywhere. Ahead of us, under the pale light of the moon, we saw the taillights of the SUV. They were parked near the edge of the quarry drop-off. 2 figures were dragging a third figure toward the edge. "Hang on," Silas yelled. He didn't hit the brakes. He slammed on the gas. We weren't going to negotiate. We were going to ram them. This was the choice I made. I chose the fight. I chose the blood. And as the grille of the van smashed into the back of the SUV, sending glass and metal flying into the night, I knew there was no going back. Jasmine Sterling, the victim, died in that car crash 3 months ago. Jasmine Sterling, the Avenger, was just getting started. The impact of the maintenance van hitting the black SUV was catastrophic. The crash was a screech of tearing metal and shattering glass. The van's engine stalled, and my head slammed against the headrest, but the serum protected me from serious injury. Silas and I were out of the van instantly. The SUV was angled precariously near the edge of the quarry drop-off. Lydia and Victor had been thrown against the vehicle's frame, momentarily stunned. Leo, who they had been dragging toward the cliff, was the first to move. He was lying on the ground, still bound to his overturned wheelchair. He managed to roll a few feet away from the edge. "Jasmine." "Silas." Leo shouted, his voice rough. Lydia was scrambling out of the passenger door. She saw Silas and me emerging from the wreckage, guns drawn. Her face contorted into pure, unadulterated fury. "You're supposed to be paralyzed," she screamed at Silas. "The cure had a temporary side effect," Silas replied, his voice dangerously calm. "You didn't wait long enough, Lydia. You tricked me." "You tricked us all first," I countered, aiming my .45 squarely at her chest. "Where's the phone?" "The one connected to the Helios clinic." Lydia laughed, a hysterical sound that echoed off the rock face. "It doesn't matter, darling. Victor initiated the final transfer protocol just before you hit us. All the funds are gone. Everything is moving offshore. You have nothing left." As she spoke, Victor Gantry emerged from the driver's side. He was faster than her, and he wasn't stunned. He had a look of cold, professional rage. He had a pistol in his hand. "Drop the weapons, Sterlings," Victor ordered, aiming at Silas. Silas didn't hesitate. He didn't drop his weapon. He raised it and fired. Bang! Victor ducked behind the SUV's open door. Silas was good. Better than I expected. "He's aiming for the tires, Jazz," Silas yelled, reloading quickly. "Keep Lydia pinned. I'll take Victor." This wasn't a movie. This was a brutal, desperate fight. I ran toward the rear of the van wreckage, using the metal frame as cover. Lydia pulled a small, silver revolver from her waistband. She fired at me. Bang! Bang! The bullets whizzed past my head, impacting the metal of the van door. I fired back. I wasn't aiming to kill. I was aiming to pin her down. I fired a shot that blew out the back window of the SUV right next to her head. Lydia dropped behind the vehicle with a shriek. Silas was exchanging fire with Victor on the opposite side. The sound of their heavy pistols echoed like thunder in the quarry. Bang! 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 Victor was a trained killer. He moved low, fast, and silently. Silas was relying on brute force and aggression. Jazz! The cliff! Leo yelled from the ground. "They're going to push the car. It's loaded with evidence." I looked at the SUV. Victor and Lydia were using it for cover, but they were right near the edge. I took a deep breath. I needed to end this. I ran out from behind the van, sprinting toward the rear of the SUV. I ignored the flash of Lydia's revolver as she tried to track me. I reached the SUV. Victor was momentarily distracted by Silas's relentless attack. He was leaning out, firing at my father. I slammed the butt of my .45 into the back of Victor's head with all the force the serum had given me. He went down instantly, dropping his pistol. "Victor!" Lydia screamed. She lunged out from the side, aiming the revolver at my head. I was faster. I hit her with the taser. It crackled against her chest. She stiffened, her body going rigid, and she let out a piercing scream. The revolver dropped from her hand. She collapsed right at the edge of the cliff. "It's over, Lydia," I said, my voice heavy. Silas ran over. He kicked Victor's pistol away. He looked at me, his chest heaving. "You took Victor out." I wasn't expecting that." "I told you I was ready," I replied. "The server," Lydia whispered from the ground, her voice filled with venom. She was twitching, but conscious. "The transfer is locked in. The company, it's mine, Silas." "You lost everything." Silas reached into his jacket. He pulled out the flash drive, the one I had planned to use, the virus Leo had given me. "You initiated the transfer, Lydia," Silas said, stepping over her. "But you used the company network to do it. You used the server you thought you controlled." Silas walked to the wrecked van. He found the laptop I had used. He plugged the flash drive into the laptop, then quickly tapped out a command. "This is Leo's work," Silas explained to me, his fingers flying across the keys. "It's a digital IED. The moment you triggered the full transfer, the virus detected the anomalous outgoing traffic. It's not stopping the transfer, Lydia." He looked at her, his eyes cold. "It's routing the transfer, the entire $3 billion, to a highly secure, private escrow account. An account controlled by the United States Treasury, earmarked for corporate fraud investigation. It's a digital trap. The money is frozen. It's gone from all of us." Lydia let out a wail of defeat. "No, you can't." "Oh yes, I can," Silas said. "Because now that the money is frozen, the SEC will be looking for a single person who authorized that massive, last-minute transfer." "And who did the final login to your system, Lydia?" "You did." He slammed the laptop shut. "You set up the crime. You authorized the theft. You are the only name on the ledger now." Justice was served. Not by law, but by a final, perfect stroke of financial revenge. Silas immediately called 911. He didn't mince words. "We have a major vehicular accident at the I-5 quarry access point. 2 corporate executives are injured. One is wanted for attempted murder and corporate espionage." While he was on the phone, I went to Leo. I cut the ropes and removed the tape from his mouth. "You brilliant idiot," I whispered, helping him sit up. Leo managed a weak smile. "Told you. Playing. Waiting." He pointed to the SUV. The laptop. She used the corporate laptop. It has the final, unencrypted logs of the transfer protocol and the Lydia's scapegoat folder. We need that to prove Victor and her were working together. I ran to the SUV. I reached through the broken window and grabbed the laptop bag. It was too late. Lydia was still lying on the ground, but she was fully conscious now. She had crawled, slowly, deliberately, toward the edge of the cliff. "You won the battle, Silas," she hissed, her eyes locking onto mine. "But you won't win the war. Because you still don't know who killed your wife." She pushed herself over the edge. I rushed to the precipice. I saw her body hit the surface of the reservoir far below. The water was dark and silent. What did she mean? I asked Silas. She said, "I don't know who killed my mother." Silas looked down at the water, his face grim. "She meant she didn't." He looked at me. "The Helios Clinic, Jasmine. The disease is real. But your mother didn't go into cryosleep because of the disease. She went in because someone tried to poison her. They failed, but the toxins shut down her nervous system, putting her into a persistent vegetative state. We only had time to freeze her to buy time to find the original killer." "Poison?" I whispered. "Lydia didn't kill her?" "Lydia was just the tool." "The financial hitman," Silas said. "There is someone bigger, Jasmine. Someone who wanted Sterling Corp gone 20 years ago, and they're still out there. They used Lydia's greed. And now she's gone, and the trail is cold again." I stood there, looking at the water. I had won. But the victory felt hollow. I traded a financial criminal for the real killer. Epilogue, a new partnership. The rest of the night was a blur. Ambulances, police reports, and the cold, professional process of the FBI seizing Victor, who was found with Lydia's incriminating laptop and the signed transfer document in his pocket. By dawn, we were back at the estate. The sun rose over the mansion, and the whole place looked different. Not a fortress of pain, but a home. I sat in the study, watching Silas on the phone with the Helios Clinic. "Yes, Dr. Vogel," he said gently. "The funding is temporarily secured via a federal escrow account. We have time. Tell my wife. Tell her I'll be there soon." He hung up and looked at me. "The company is gone," he said. "Frozen. We're broke. But we're alive. And your mother is safe. We have a fighting chance." I nodded. "What now?" "We rebuild," Silas said. "But we start over. Together." He came around the desk and offered me his hand. It wasn't a cold handshake. It was a partnership. "You're a natural, Jasmine. You have the killer instinct. You just needed to realize who the real enemy was." I took his hand. "We have to find the real killer, Dad." "We will," he promised. "Lydia gave us the one thing we need, a warning. The war isn't over. And the person who tried to kill your mother is still out there, hiding in the shadows." Leo was taken to the hospital. He'd live, but he needed a lot of physical therapy. I called him later that day. "I need a new head of security," I told him. "And a chief hacker. And a very expensive bill for your therapy." Leo laughed, a real, genuine sound. "I'll take the job. But I want a window office, Jazz. I'm sick of warehouses." "Deal," I said. I hung up the phone and looked out the window. The police tape was gone. The damage was being cleaned up. I walked over to the recording equipment I had set up earlier. I knew I had to finish the podcast. "If you're still listening to this," I said into the microphone, my voice clear and strong. "You've heard the whole story. I came back from the dead to find a monster, and instead, I found a family. The money is gone. The company is gone. But the truth is out. My father is not a villain. He's a hero who played a terrible part to save me. My mother is alive. And I, Jasmine Sterling, am no longer a princess. I'm a warrior. But the war isn't over. There is still one mystery left. Who tried to kill Alara Sterling 21 years ago?" I picked up the black pistol and placed it on the desk next to the microphone. "They thought they could end my family. They thought they could break my father. They thought they could kill me. They were wrong. And now I have the cure running in my blood." I leaned into the microphone. "This podcast is no longer about my death. It's about a rebirth. You've been listening to The Ghost of Sterling Manor. The next season, we find the real killer. We find the architect. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single second. I turned off the recorder. The silence was final. The game was not over. It was just getting started.